Thank you very much for coming. It's a closing discussion, and I guess there are not that much of us here, and it's all right, because this discussion is not to inform you about something, but rather to talk how could we live further and what kind of outcome of the conference and what kind of future direction in this multidisciplinary field we expect to happen, and what and how we can contribute to it. And I asked a few people to share their vision of different roles within the field. And we will have a few questions, and the first one concerns mathematics education research through the different lenses. And we have here representatives of psychology, mathematics education teaching practice, mathematics education as a research from Norma and from Marco, and neuropsychology. And just in any order you wish to start, I'd like you to share how do you see, what is your, maybe Marco will be the last, and how do you see your discipline contributing to this field in general?
Okay, hello everyone. Then I was thinking what to say today from behalf of a psychologist. I remember the story which was told by Elena Polotskaya yesterday. It's a story about one Canadian teacher who suddenly appeared that most of her students had made a lot of mistakes in a task, and she told them, "Oh, guys, it's a wrong task. Let's try another." And she didn't try to figure out what happened in their heads and how they are thinking. And I think that all teachers, not only mathematicians, but a lot of every teacher should be educational psychologist, because every teacher should imagine what happened in their students' heads. And I mean, not of course, psychology in education, it's a huge, large area. I mean, not all psychologists, but special psychologists who think about learning. So I think, and in Russian they have a huge tradition of these investigations, research, learning research. I mean, Davidov, Galperin, and in this conference they are talking more about this, their researches. And in opposite, Russian psychologists a lot of time were in isolation from the world, and I think this conference is a good opportunity to share our experience and to collaborate in the future.
Thank you very much, Anastasia. And so this psychological focus on what is happening in learning. And Anastasia actually a couple of times told what is happening in their head. And this could be one psychological approach, but it also connects us with the neuropsychological vision. Oh, okay, very good.
Okay, thank you for the time on the mic. I would like to say that in conferences like this, you meet wonderful people, you get excited about ideas, and then when the conference finishes, everybody goes back to their regular activities, and we find it difficult to get connected again. So the question is, my field in collaboration, I can't do any neuroscience with children if I don't have children. Come to me, or we go to them. So right now, for example, in our work, we take ultrasound machines and go to the schools. And we take eye tracking machines and go to the schools. We cannot take an MRI machine yet. Maybe we'll get one. But the idea is we need collaboration. So what I would suggest, perhaps practically, is to, now that we're all here, today before we leave, is to maybe think of what we can do to communicate next week or in a month when everybody gets distracted. So for instance, we can, the organizers can organize like a spreadsheet with all the email addresses so people can find each other. The people that don't want to share their email can opt out or something like that, so that we can find people we have talked to, or they can find us, and they will know that they have the opportunity to start a conversation that continue a conversation that they started here.
Thank you very much for jumping immediately to practical solutions. That's indeed what we need. But could you a bit reflect? You clearly spot that you need us in a way, yeah, but also kind of how do you see the contribution of neuroscience to educational field?
Yeah, of course I see a lot of things in the future, but we have a lot to learn. So neuroscience has shown us that there is exciting things to be learned and a big contribution to be made in terms of how our neurons learn, of how teaching affects the brain, how it affects brain structure, how it affects brain function. But that's just the beginning. We started scanning children in 20 years ago, and the studies with adults are much more. And from neuroscience, we need we know that every age group is different, so we need to better study these trajectories, and to do that, we need more research. So there is a lot more to be done, in child development and in child neuroscience, so that we can have better answers for the questions we have in education and in learning.
Thank you very much. And that's a good opportunity for me to pass question to Jakov, because Maria is telling, like, we need research to answer questions. And I think that one of the best person who can put questions is a real teacher. Yeah, like, yeah, could you reflect how you feel as a teacher, educational field helpful, maybe? And how you think, like, your experience as a teacher also would help us to understand better the processes?
I think that teachers who work in the field can provide enormous data for researchers to think over and to make their theoretical conclusions. But teachers themselves, and I, for example, have to have some guidelines, psychological guidelines for their work to choose the right path to follow. I, for example, chosen as such path the theory of step-by-step formation by Professor Galperin, by the way, one of whose students was Davidov, and whose term, which I recognize now as scaffolding, was introduced in early 50s, but probably wasn't translated at that time into English. And it helped me and still helps me a lot in my practical teaching in classroom. That's it.
Thank you. So this kind of guidance that you could expect. And may I ask you, think a bit more, because we, unfortunately for the moment, we don't have a mathematician sitting here, although I would very much appreciate a person from mathematics coming, yes? But you're the most representative person.
No, not me, not me. I see here in the auditorium is people who are much more competent in this field, really.
Yeah, maybe
Margot, I think, right?
if somebody from the audience feels like share his field contribution, mathematics or more computer science or whatever, I would really appreciate your input. Oh, there is a mathematician.
While I'm a professional mathematician, but I say from position of one profession which you skip here. It's those who teach the teachers.
Oh, yes.
Who teach teachers. And I want to say a few words in problematizing manner. I think that we needn't collaboration with psychologists until they are interested in investigation of phenomena and not interested in investigation how to change it. Because for teacher, it is essential to achieve some goal, to change something in their students. We need cooperation with sociologists until they are interested in investigation of some phenomena and don't think about how to change it. Really, for teacher education, we need the empirical knowledge how to change this or that property of human. We needn't collaboration with mathematicians while I'm a mathematician until mathematicians are interested in the investigation of their mathematical facts and not interested in reflection what intellectual properties, what intellectual functions are staying over their investigation. So these are the problems of collaborating.
Thank you very much. Problematizing is always good. Yeah, I will bring back to the audience mic very soon, but I'd just like, because I know Anastasia's approach as a psychologist quite well, and in a way, and also Russian tradition in psychology, and I think it addresses exactly what you're talking about, this issue of what does psychology investigate, how it is or how it should be. Yes, could you tell a few words, please?
Yes, it's a very interesting question because educational psychology, which I represent here, it's a specific area of psychology that which should investigate it how to is through the how to formate the something. So it's the main way to investigation. It's a formation, and through the formation, they know something about the process. And I think from this point of view and this approach of psychology, this educational psychology approach is very useful for practice, for teaching.
Indeed, it's an issue of methodology, and if we investigate world as it is, like a natural science does, that's one possible paradigm, and transformative research, like okay, dialectical materialistic psychology would propose. It's another type of methodology. And I think that this field, I mean, that's one of the reasons I particularly like it, that it accepts and takes into account different methodologies. And thank you for raising it. And I'd like Norma to...
Is it on? Can you hear me? Yes. Well, I feel very strongly that we need both. And I think it was Mogens Ness in Denmark who pointed out that there are two kinds of research in our field. And the one is descriptive analytic. We need to know what is there, and this might be statistical or it might be qualitative. But it's not trying to change anything. It's trying to find out about some phenomenon. And this is very important, this kind of research. But then he pointed out there's another kind of research, and I think Anna mentioned both of these. The other kind of research he called normative research. Because what is the goal of doing this at all? Are we just trying to find out for our own knowing about something? Or are we trying to better the teaching and learning of mathematics? And here, this affects all of us, because whether we are mathematicians or whether we are mathematics education researchers, most of us are still involved in education, including teacher education. So I feel strongly that there is a place for both these kinds of learning, and it's not just a methodological question, although there might be differences in the methodologies employed in these two different kinds. But we need to be aware of the goal of what we are doing. And through the decades, there has been a problem. And I think it goes back, there were articles in JRME maybe 15 years ago, where Journal for Research in Mathematics Education, most of you I think have heard of it. And in this journal, I'm trying to remember who the editor was, but this editor was especially interested in what is the impact of the research on the daily lives of teachers in the classroom. And there has been a break between research and what is actually happening in the betterment of the teaching and learning in the classroom. So we need to keep in mind that our research has the goal of making this thing better. But in order to do that, we need the descriptive normative research as well.
Thank you. Yes, I think this is important question to position. Yes, it's like a question, yeah, of aim, of general need. And I think there is more other disciplines to come and to contribute. Yeah.
I want to accent some connections between mathematics and psychology, which does not mention other people. For example, I have said that Noam Chomsky developed formal languages, mathematical theory, but psychologists use it as psychology ideas. And at the same time, in logic, we use, for example, implication operation, but there are many different logic operations. For example, operation not and, which is enough to express all logical function, only one. But our brain does not use this logical operation. What is mean? Because logics, mathematical logics is reflect some psychology of human. So it is important to explore this connection between mathematics and psychology.
Yeah, this is very interesting. If that's a logic that reflects human psychology, or is it because Piaget was trying to do the other way around, to explain mathematical mind through logical constructions. But I like to see it this way, and I think it's powerful. Yes, and Marco, would you add?
Yeah, I'll frame my answer as representing PME. And the question was that, how do you see the place of PME in this collaboration? And my answer is that I see PME as the place for this collaboration. We all do have different types of meetings we go for to collaborate. We go to the area of specialty, like mathematicians, they go to mathematics conferences, and more specifically, topologists go to meet other topology researchers. Logistic researchers go to meet other logic researchers. When I go to conference in that sense, I might go to meet other eye-tracking people, and we discuss technical details and methodology and very specific questions. But when we come together to a place like PME, we and many others, we come because we have a problem in mind that we want to solve. It could be like the first-year students are having high dropout rate at mathematics department. We want to understand why it's happening, how we can help it, and we will get information from anthropological research about how the social integration is important for the first year. We get information from the cognitive perspective, what are the cognitive difficulties that students are having in learning new concepts at the university level. So this kind of meeting place where people come to discuss the same problem, and each of them is bringing something special expertise to that discussion. That is the most important value that I see for PME.
Thank you, Marco. And I guess it's a rich question, but I'd like us to move a bit further, but we can come back also. And we have already touched the next question about the researchers and practitioners in the field. And I mean, it's infinite questions also, but I think it's particularly important because, as Norma says, that it's a field with a goal to make education better. But when we come to a classroom, to a teacher and say, okay, research has proven you need to do this, this, and this way, that actually doesn't really work. For some reason, teachers are not eager enough to just follow our paradigms. And I'd like, first of all, Jakov and also some others, whoever have, and maybe Norma, to share positive experiences of possible connections between researchers and practices when it is not kind of experts' directions, but something more mild and accurate and efficient. Yeah?
You know, teacher is a too broad name for actually many different types of professions, like medical doctor or even mathematician, because there are very different ways of teaching depending on the audience. For example, special education teacher and a teacher in the general classroom, or teacher for gifted and talented, or teacher in different cultures. It depends on culture too, strongly depends. On age. Elementary school kids, it's one thing, and high school kids, it's a different story. And it even differs from big city to small towns. It depends, it's a whole variety of situations. And normally, usually, teachers spend most of their energy just to manage, just for classroom management. Just to provide, you know, to teach basic skills in the set, which is very, very tough. I just, you know, put myself in a very comfortable situation. I deal with small group of motivated kids, and I'm happy with that. would be I so efficient in another environment? You know, it happened that I tried and wasn't. So it really matters. But I saw teachers who were very, very strong in classroom management skills and could manage to not only to survive in that, you know, environment, but to be very successful. It's different part of teaching, and different, and it requires different skills. So it's very, very broad issue, very, very sophisticated.
Thank you very much. I'm particularly appreciating these words because I think this is very important, this kind of self-reflection on a, let's say, narrow, because you told it yourself, narrow efficiency, and we all saw in Yakov's presentations how efficient one can be, how far you can go in a particular settings, yes, and perhaps in this case, psychological involvement is not that needed because they are motivated, and this mathematical and methodical contribution is really most important, but in others it could be different, as you say. Thank you. And could you, Norma, please share? Yeah.
Thank you. With regard to this question of the relationship of researchers with teachers, and I think that is the gist of the question. Am I right? Yes. I am very encouraged that we have come to the conclusion, and it was not evident from the beginning of mathematics education research. The researchers are not the experts who are going to tell the teachers how to do it. As Anna said, that just doesn't work. Teaching is complicated, and the teachers are the experts in many ways in their own classroom. And I'm very glad that I think you can help me to decide if my perception is accurate. At this point in our development as researchers, we know that teachers have expertise, and we learn from teachers as much as they learn from us. So the mutual respect and the projects in which teachers are involved as equal partners, I believe, are the ones that are effective. The respect and the acknowledgement of the expertise of the teachers is very important.
Thank you very much. And I'd like also to point to at least two methodologies which were here at the research reports and the oral communications, and I regret Maria Melane left because she was talking about lesson study, like one methodology when researchers and teachers do work together, and research in action when also researchers come to school not to instruct teachers, but to learn from doing and conducting curricula together. And if anybody would like to add to this or share in this context their experience of collaborating research and practice, I would appreciate.
Thank you so much. I appreciated your observation, Norma, because the role of the teacher is really important nowadays, not only as a learner when researchers can teach something, but as a collaborator. In Italy, we have an example, not only as lesson study that is really recent, but in the last 30 years, more or less, we involve some teachers in the research groups in the university, as pairs, as collaborators of researchers. And they participate to the design of the research, to the collection of data, and to the analysis at the end. And so there is a mutual exchange, as you told before, between teachers and collaborators. Within the institution also, for example, to implement as a result of the research some national plan of professional development. So there is the research, but there is also an impact on the institution for a big scale projects of professional development. For that reason, in the last years, we developed in Turin and Modena a theoretical framework in order to study this process of interaction of these two communities, of the teachers and researchers together.
Thank you very much. Yes, for raising this, like professional development is clearly something we need to interact and designing lessons and studies together. Yes, and interesting that I mean, for me it is news that it appears as a research field. How do we interact? It's valuable. Yes, and Angelica?
Yeah. We have worked with, as I said in the other day, we have tried to go into praxis in different kinds of subject, not only mathematics education, but also in other areas. And we have set up a group and found there that, we failed up to a certain amount. So I already reported on that. And the reaction was that we developed a model of innovation of school. And innovation of school as a model to innovate the whole environment in the school. It's not only the teacher that has to be changed, because change in education is more than that. The teacher is the whole milieu in which the teacher works. That is the material there. Even the students with whom the teacher works can undergo a innovation and a change. So we found that everything matters within this community. And what we have developed is also with reference to the Turin group, that there has to be some kind of community of innovation in the schools that also but need some initiation from outside, because they can from the inside not really innovate. They can solve their problems, but innovation will be within this kind of institution. That means that things have to come a bit from outside. It's a bit like in Asia, it's not only in the lesson studies, but at other places they have innovated also some problem solving and at a large scale, and that was done also by initiation from outside, so that researchers are available and work with them and help them so that they can rely on their support. And that need not be a research field, but it needs to have some kind of support from outside. But researchers will, of course, need to make research out of it, because it's time-consuming.
So researcher community in this case appears rather like moderating processes within the teaching learning processes, not as an expert, but as a facilitator or something like this. Yes, and co-design, yes, and provoking co-design of the process. Yes, thank you. I think this is really valuable. Yeah, I will give you mic, but I just want to also trigger other people's thoughts that researchers and practitioners, it's not only school. It is also e-learning design, commercial companies, and this is also a big question: how do we interact with these people, which are sometimes also ourselves? And I do know there are people in the audience who are working there, so I would appreciate your reflection of on possible collaborations as well. Yeah, but first, Elena, please.
Our experience was very positive, and I tried to analyze why we have so positive reaction from schools. And I think it's because we get together because both of us had the problem. Because as researchers, we were researching on some subject and we need the field. And actually, the people we met in school, they were not satisfied with something in their work, and they were looking for somebody who can help. And I think it was a wonderful opportunity to really get together and work very fruitfully. And for me, it's fundamental that both sides are looking for something in the collaboration.
Very telling for Russian psychologists that collaboration starts from mutual need. Yes. Anybody from, just to ask, is there any from technology side who experiences of interaction from technology? From technology side, good.
Yes, I can sit, yes. Well, I had the opportunity to work about 10 years with Zach Abramson at our school, experimental school, where we tried to collaborate with scientists, technologists, psychologists, and the director of our school, it was Aleph, School Aleph, was a psychologist herself, and the ideas of Piotr Yakovlevich Galperin, Davidov, different methodologists and psychologists were introduced in the process of teaching at this school. I am the author of the technology, informational, logical, and rhetorical culture of a specialist in LOCS. And this technology is closely connected to the ideas of Piotr Yakovlevich Galperin. I am the pupil of his ideas, and my dissertation was based on his ideas. And we have a good practice of introducing this technology to this school. We paid special attention to logics, to rhetorics, to communication culture, to speech. Everybody should be able to make her speech in different subjects and in mathematics as well, to develop its speech to explain clearly different subjects, especially mathematics.
It is nice to have those who base their technology on psychological theories. Maybe another mic, yeah?
At international level, there will be an ICME study specific on teachers working and learning in collaboration in Lisbon in February 2020. So if any one of you would like to participate to this ICME study, is welcome. And the topic is the teacher from the point of view of the research.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Is this a ICME study, a topic study group, what you just described?
Just to clarify, Arnella, please, once again, just to clarify.
ICME study is a congress with a topic, a specific topic. Next year, the topic will be on teachers. Teachers in collaboration.
Let me just explain a bit. ICME is a congress, yeah? Is a one, we will have it just later, but it's once in 4 years. It aggregates all mathematics education researchers, and because it's a huge conference, it works in specific study groups, and one of those is dedicated specifically to the teachers. Yes, thanks. Yeah, I just monitoring also time. I want here at this conference at this moment to pay special attention that this conference itself is a possible collaboration of practitioners and research community. Because we were invited here by Yandex, hard to imagine it to be happening often in this field, but it's happening. And those interest is to understand better and to provoke development of research in education in Russia, because when they started to hire people for their educational projects, they suddenly realized there is nobody to hire. We don't understand who knows how to build technology for education. We even hardly can find people who think they can tell us how to build it. So this conference was triggered by this feeling of a need to be more educated, to understand better, and I deeply respect their interest and really thankful for their job and hope it will work further, but just want us to notice it. And during the day, now I don't see anyone, maybe I just don't see somebody, anyone who works as a methodologist, as a designer, as an educational designer in Yandex, but there were people all the time during this conference who were just absorbing whatever can be suitable for them. Yes.
So I'm going to put some numbers on what Anna is saying. There is 2016, I think it was the report from the National Economic Forum or something like that. They were projecting ahead and saying that children that are now entering education, they're now entering school, 65% of these children will be involved in jobs that we don't know today. So these children will be doing something that doesn't exist yet. So how are we preparing our students, our children that will go to school this year, last year, like in the next few years? And they are like these people that are more involved in economics and how our society is developing, how we need innovation, how we need technology, and all these things are focusing on studies of science, of mathematics, of engineering, to prepare the students for the problems we don't know yet. So I think it's very important for us to try to do the best we can do so that these children will solve our problems when we are old and we cannot solve our own.
Yes, and theoretizing and understanding this indeterminacy. Yes, thanks. Thank you. And time is passing quickly. We're really close to the end. And let us think a bit, what could we do next? And at first, I'd like to ask Norma and Marko to share some experiences of what they have seen happening in the world, because we are like a Russian community of mathematics, education, research, kind of just born. Of course, there were people who were doing this, but not as a community, not as knowing each other. And let us just listen what others have encountered in this process.
Well, thank you. I do have two things that I would like to talk about. And the one relates to what I said before about the relationship between theoretical research and the actual practice in the classroom. And the name I could not remember was Judy Sada, with JRME. But she was very interested in this question. But it has been a difficult topic in the USA. I'm not sure if you are familiar. There were many countries in the world a couple of decades ago that did not even know that there was such a thing as mathematics education research. After all, anybody who teaches mathematics, they know what they're doing. Why do we need research in this area? And it was, I think, in the 80s and the 90s that universities started opening up and establishing mathematics education research as a field in its own right. And there was a wonderful conference at College Park, Maryland, in the United States in the early 90s. And there were invited participants, and It was under the umbrella of an ICME study group, and the goal was to find out what is research in mathematics education and what are its results. And I was privileged to be at that conference, and a book came out edited by Jeremy Kilpatrick and Anna Sierpinska. But in some ways, we are still defining our field. And as universities, I can speak about the United States. I emigrated to the USA in 1990. And at that point, more and more universities were hiring people to be mathematics education researchers as a field in its own right. And some of my doctoral students at the Florida State University were looking for jobs, and they found that if they did not have actual research experience, classroom experience in a school, K through 12, as they say, then they were not going to get hired, because people who are teaching teachers need to have been in the classroom and know what it is like to have the nuts and bolts life of a teacher in a school. So, in fact, I had one student who did a very good PhD, and he could not get a job. He applied for many, many jobs. And the jobs were there, but he realized he did not have teaching experience in a school. So he went and taught for 3 years in a correctional facility. But then he had experience as a teacher, and then he got a good job. So this is one aspect, the need for practitioners. The researchers are not just theoretical, they must have the actual experience. This is one aspect, and while I'm talking, I'd like to give a little bit of the history of Sweden, because I had the great privilege of helping to supervise the very first mathematics education research PhD in Sweden. There were plenty of wonderful mathematicians, but there was nobody in the whole country who had done a research in mathematics education. And this was Andres Dunkels at the University of Luleå in the north of Sweden. And he first had to prove that he was a mathematician to give him the credentials. And then he was allowed to undertake research in his own calculus for engineering class. And it was a wonderful project. He did a brilliant dissertation. It was combining quantitative and qualitative methods. I even learned some Swedish so that I could participate in this. And it was the very first one, and it was the insight of Professor Lars Erik Persson at the University of Luleå and Gerd Brandell, who worked for the ministry. And these two people saw the need for this field to become active in Sweden. And then, if I can tell a little story, I was on the committee which was supposed to hire the very first mathematics education professor at that university. And unfortunately, my beloved student, Andres, had died. So he was not able to be in the mix of people who were applying for this job. And it was a committee of 3 people. And actually, I have a funny story, if you have time for a funny story. 1 minute, all right. Very quickly. I was a professor in the USA, but I still had a South African passport. And I had forgotten I need a visa to go to Sweden. If I was in the USA, I would not need a visa if I was a citizen in the USA. So here there was a time difference. It was early January. The temperature was about -40 in the north of Sweden. And I realized at the last minute I cannot go to this meeting where we are choosing the first professor. And they put me on telephone conference call, and I'm sitting in the middle of my carpet in my pajamas with a cup of coffee, choosing the first mathematics education professor in Sweden. But there was nobody who was suitable for the job. We had to hire somebody from Germany, Rudolf Stresser, who went to that university. Now, there are dozens of people in Sweden who could do that job. But it was the brilliant insight of those two organizers who organized a national program in Sweden. And combining all the universities, they invited international researchers to come from many countries in the world and to combine the teaching in summer programs and to have a whole group of people who are now up-and-coming mathematics education researchers and becoming professors in this area as our field matures. And this is a possibility for countries who do not yet have such a program, or who do not have mathematics education professors who are internationally cooperating.
Thank you very much, Norma. This is one experience and one possible track, and Russian situation might be different, also due to tradition and the situation, but just to consider how it is happening. Yes, and Marco.
So maybe I start first from what I've seen during my time in PME community and in mathematics education. There have been countries that have been very underrepresented in the community, maybe one or none coming in there, like places like Taiwan, Turkey, South Korea were quite a long time like that. But they have become very strong in PME community over the years. So countries that don't send participants because of language difficulties, because funding difficulty, because they don't have the tradition or they don't have knowledge about these venues, they learn about these venues and can become important member countries in the PME community. We have seen many of these happen, even during my relatively short career. Your career is much longer. You've seen more of these cases, I bet. And I see no reason why Russia could not be one of the big countries in PME community. You have wonderful tradition in mathematics education with very interesting psychological tradition. And you have a big country with lots of researchers in these areas. So there's no reason why Russia could not be making the same step into going into international research, if you want to. What I want to add there that PME, or mathematics education generally, is a wonderful community. I've seen a little bit other communities, and I see that mathematics education is very inclusive to newcomers, beginning researchers, people with limited language opportunities. So people are very friendly to people who have little experience, and they are very helpful. They are established systems in the organization. Like we provide, if there's someone who doesn't have a beginning research with very poor infrastructure, we provide early bird option to submitting for PME, like you can send your paper to a PME person who can help you refine your paper in a way that it would be more likely accepted. We organize now these kind of regional events to help people step up from the national context to international context. There's financial support systems that you can apply for support if you don't have funding from your own university. So there are lots of ways that we are supporting also in very practical ways.
Thank you very much, Marco. This is an invitation from PME, and I will give a bit more information on it in our last closing part. So we still have some 35 minutes before we're finished completely. And I'd like now us to kind of see what we have as a very practical ideas. And Marie already told about having a mailing list. We clearly will have a mailing list. it will be my duty to spread information that comes to me between you as the Russian community. But there are also other ideas. Yes?
So something that I see coming up more in math education also is comparative studies between contexts. And that's also an opportunity, like if you're doing something and you want to find a collaborator in the other country, that would strengthen both of your research, because education is very contextual and often the research results are very situated, and to be able to say that yes, it worked here and it worked also there and there, it's much more stronger evidence of something being possible to apply in real classroom contexts.
Thanks. Yes, please.
I want to add two things. First, I want to talk about working in schools in Moscow when you don't speak Russian. And I have this experience. I have a special situation where I work in a Russian university in an English-speaking program. So technically, I don't have to speak Russian. But all my research that is behavioral and it's in schools has to happen in Russian, because children speak Russian, the teachers speak Russian, the principals speak Russian. And I have to say, I don't know if it just happened to me, and I ended up working with very talented, very competent graduate students and collaborators, where we get all this work done without me speaking Russian. So there is great opportunity. I could be anywhere in the world doing this research with people that understand the idea, are interested in the project, and are motivated to do this. So we have tested more than 700 children in Moscow schools. We have tested them with behavioral measures, with ultrasound. We are using eye tracking now. And we are, so I think it's possible for people from other countries to open up these routes of collaboration. And that's my first point. My second point is that most of the work we've done in the past was on cognitive competence, on attentional capacity, things like that. And this year, we are starting a project on mathematics. So if there's teachers out there, and if there's people from Russian schools who are interested, we are open to collaborate. We are going to test children behaviorally, figure out how our tasks work, and then we're going to invite those children and their parents to do MRI studies. So this is an open call. If you're interested, send me an email. I will be happy to collaborate.
So it's great to know that there are indeed master's students, PhD students in Russia who would be benefiting from international collaboration. And I know it not only from High School of Economics University, but also from other universities, that there are students who are asking where to read about it, what to do about it, what is the guidance, what is the methodology, and it's an invitation for international researchers for a collaboration. And I do know that we have here at least 2 ideas of a particular further meetings. 3 ideas. Okay, good, great. 3 ideas, okay, I don't know. I know about 2 ideas, but there are more ideas of what else we could do. Great.
Well, I have 2 suggestions. My name is Arina Usacheva. I represent the International Reading Institute by Alexei Leontiev. Alexei Leontiev was our great psycholinguist. The first suggestion is to take part in our conference on the psychology, philosophy, and the pedagogics of reading, especially devoted to the problems of mathematical literacy and its meaning for formation of interdisciplinary skills, study skills. those who are interested in this program, we invite to present your thesis before the 30th of March. The 30th of March, we can give you this invitation, and we will be we shall wait your thesis, and we devote the special issue of our journal or magazine devoted to the problem of understanding and comprehension of mathematical texts.
Thank you very much. So it's a kind of yesterday next step, or tomorrow next step,
yes.
Just immediately now. And it is a Russian-speaking conference dedicated to reading mathematical texts,
yes.
which will be just running further. I will send the information by email to everybody, and this is just one coming possibility. And then maybe
I can give you the invitation.
Sergei Nikolaevich?
I can give you the invitation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I want to continue Mark's ideas about cooperations, and I will be mostly pragmatic. Firstly, I have said that it is very pleasant that there are people from different areas. For example, 3 of us mathematicians, 4 education, psychologists, and designers of computer support programs. And it is a very important situation because, as I can see, we have different point of view on the same situation, and we have some interesting discussion and maybe opposite opinion on the same thing, and it is not bad. It is very good because it is the beginning of new discoveries, of new theories, and so on. And I think that firstly, it is good idea to have the same combinations of different specialities, and maybe we can continue the tradition of this conference, and maybe after 2 years we can repeat this conference in St. Petersburg. And it is possible to choose the most beautiful time, maybe what you are interested in to come to St. Petersburg, and I will be glad to organize such a meeting. And this, the next idea, because there are many people from Russian universities and other учреждения, как сказать, institution. all of us has some pragmatic needs. For example, we interested in international projects, context, because in every university we have some scores, yes, for each person. And we need, in such context, for our, how to say, future existence in our university, yes. And the next idea is publication. If we can to combine in different collective, как to say, companies, yes, author companies to prepare common publication, it will be very important for us. As for how to support such a link, maybe very for the first time a very small activity, mailing list, and if it is possible to 2 раза в год, как сказать?
Twice a year.
Twice a year, or maybe 3 times of year. Prepare what interested projects are conducted and which we can participate, and maybe some people want to take in grant from, for example, our National Fund of Fundamental Research, but need in partners in other countries. So it is good idea to find such partners between us. And the next idea, it is very simple too. Each of person present very interesting theories, ideas, articles, and maybe if we will have the list of persons with for each surname the link with his publications, it will be very good possibility to know more than we know at this moment.
Thank you very much. There are a few ideas. I want just to name them once again because I think it's very important. First of all, Sergei Nikolaevich is kind of inviting. We'll try to take a responsibility. We'll see how I can contribute to it and how we all can support and what kind of funding we can find to making a PME Russia in 2 years in St. Petersburg. I think if we really can accomplish it, it would be super great. And thank you very much for suggesting it. Secondly, definitely we will make a mailing list. For the moment, I just ask everybody who hears something like to share with this community to send information to me. And then I probably will find another way how to get it spread. But for the moment, it will be good enough. I have all your emails, and it will be good. The third one is publications. And let's put it this way. Third one is to have a list with references to your own publications to make ourselves known as the authors. And let's think more how we can do it if anybody has an idea where to put such a web page, how to arrange it. I'm welcoming it. Let's think about it more.
There are already some platforms for academics to do this kind of networking. So ResearchGate and academia. So I think that could be better than to establish yet another way of communicating.
Yes, thanks for putting it. Yeah, maybe, yeah, I exist both in academia and in ResearchGate. It's not that all my publications are there, but at least I'm promising myself each time to keep track of both of them. Yeah, but LinkedIn doesn't work in Russia. So it's not a case, but ResearchGate and academia works. So please, everybody, if you have a page, I don't know, find me there. And the others will also find me, and through me find others. That is an easy way to get connected, I think. All right, so this is resolved. Good. I wish we moved that fast with all of it. And let me go to the last one before we go to the closing. And this is a publication issue. We will have proceedings. My deadline is November. By November, we will have published these materials. Of course, everybody will be informed about it. We will also have videos. You also will know about it. Further, we have some invitations, kind of pending invitations for special issues on mathematics education from Russian journals, English-speaking Russian journals, if I can put it in this way, who would be glad. Of course, you can't republish there, but you can enlarge your conference paper. Like now you have 8 pages, you can make 15, add some material, add theoretical perspective. It will go again through the review process, but I guess it is fine. That's how it's getting done. But I would really welcome very much a person who could help me with editing this, because I don't think I'm going to become an editor of this special issue for the moment. But if somebody feels like he's ready to help, it's not a huge work. I mean, it's just to see who sends papers, if they're well enough to be sent to review, and as we already have passed all through the review process, they will be good enough, and then find research reviewers. Definitely I can help with it, and PME community will also, I guess, be ready to help. So, I mean, let's take it as our common task, and let's try to accomplish it and make a special issue, most probably in Educational Issues of High School of Economics journal. we'll see there was also other things. And yes, please, one more idea.
One more idea. I'm want to say a couple of words. I'm from more practitioner field. We develop educational math games for small kids, and I think that it is a great opportunity for the community to prove their ideas because I think that every research needs funding to find all these people who are likely to be involved in it, to be questioned and so on. And if it is an app in App Store and our we have a range of kids that are already playing our games, and we can somehow we could help to prove some ideas, educational ideas, in vitro. So we are very willing to collaborate. Please feel free to contact us because we aim to make scientifically based education. It may be not so serious as real science, but it helps, and I think it could be very interesting.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. And indeed, somehow happened that I have already collaborated with at least 2 commercial companies, and I receive requests for more and more commercial companies who are asking for consultancy. And I think it is possible. I think it's, first of all, very nice that people are working in commercial educational designs are seeking for educators' help. And this kind of suggestion of a collaboration that we can please suggest us what to design, what kind of data to collect. Let's do joint project. I also hear it from Alexandra and from others. And if you are, as researchers, interested in such kind of consultancy or collaboration, you can also use me as a node in this network for the moment, because I think we'll think how to get it connected, but there is such need in Russian community, clearly, of a research input, the request from commercial company for research input. This is one more important thing. Thank you. And I think this is a moment to consider this discussion closed and to turn for 20 minutes more to the final closing. Let us thank all these people.